right, everyone, welcome back. It's another edition of the WobCast 2.0, episode 7, double doink, of victory for the Vikings in London over the New Orleans Saints. I'm your host, Mike Wobschall, Wobby, with you as always, joined by my partners Giles and Chase, and we're with you for the next 30 or 45 minutes or so as we talk about the Vikings win over the New Orleans Saints. They moved to 3-1. We take a look around the NFC and the NFC North, see where the Minnesota Vikings are sitting and how we feel about them. And then we'll preview the Vikings' next game, which is against the Chicago Bears here at home, US Bank Stadium. So lots to get to. And as always, my partners in crime are Giles and Chase. Hey, fellas, how's it going?
Always a great week after a good W across the pond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess it's a quasi home for the Vikings, fellas. They're undefeated over there, at least in the modern era. They've lost games overseas, dating back to the 80s and before. But of late, home away from home for those Minnesota Vikings. I guess we're hoping they're on the schedule in London next year too.
I know, seriously. And I feel like, well, this may be more of a feeling than a reality, but it definitely is a feeling in my brain where the Vikings have a bigger fan base across the pond than a lot of different NFL teams. At least what I've seen across the world. We are probably the best sports franchise across all major sports for that matter to not have won a championship. And I think people gravitate towards that aspiration when they're trying to get into American football. Maybe. Like, the Vikings, they're always competitive. They're never a dumpster fire. I don't know. Yeah. And over the seasons, I think that's maybe why that's come to light. So
I think that's a good psychoanalysis maybe of it. I think the other thing truly is the colors and the nickname are unique. I mean, there's purple and gold in other sports. The Lakers, of course, are that. But Vikings, there's not a Vikings in every league. And purple and gold is not common. I do truly think, as superficial as those two things are, I think that plays into it,
100%.
So, yeah.
And it's a very European name. I mean, like
True.
the Vikings of Norway, feels close to home.
Yep. True. So the Vikings come out on top in London, guys. And let's go to what worked and what didn't. I mentioned the double doink, and that's sort of a famous moniker for a Chicago Bears playoff loss a few seasons ago, but it's how the Vikings secured victory in London. Is Will Lutz going off the upright and off the crossbar on, what was that, a 60-yard field goal? I think it was.
Something like that. Yeah, it was a long one. Yeah.
Field goal attempt that would have tied the game, but does not go through, and the Vikings win. So, of course, lots happened leading up to that, fellas. Let's talk about what worked. To me, there's really only two things that worked, in my view. I thought Justin Jefferson got back on track, and I thought Greg Joseph looked great. So I'm not going to be too hard on this squad here because they're 3-1, but we are going to pull this thing apart in segment 2. But in terms of what worked in this game, do you concur that those two things were working? And then was there something maybe that you think it did work that I'm not giving enough credit to? Because I really didn't see much other than those two things, and that was enough to win.
That's definitely fair. I can definitely validate those two things definitely worked. However, I think although this game was relatively unsexy in a lot of different ways, I think, not to put too much of a pun on it, but things went right with Mr. Ryan Wright. The punter just throwing the fake punt. That was a momentum shift for our game. Now, from what I understand, they practiced that all week long. So I think they had in their back pocket, like, hey, if we're down, we're going to use this to shift momentum. And I know Kevin O'Connell's talked a lot about momentum, so I think that worked really, really well. Now, I think from a macro lens, they're not going to be able to do that every week. So, it's a special trick play. From an individual standpoint, I think Dalvin Tomlinson, he's sitting in a great spot, although it's kind of a position that goes under the radar. He's technically listed on, I believe he's 8th. Out of all interior tackles on PFF grade. Like, he is having a phenomenal season. Okay. Now we'll talk a little bit more on a macro level later, but he's having a great season, and he had a great game against the Saints. Mm-hmm. And Christian Darrisaw, same thing on the other side. He was doing very, very well. So I think we got a good franchise left tackle, and he had a great game against the Saints.
Yeah. Anything you want to add there, Chase, from the executive producer standpoint?
Well, for me, I'm looking at Dalvin Cook. I'm not going to say he had a good game because I don't think he did, but
Uh-huh.
he hasn't had a good game all year. So it was nice to see some flashes here and there of the old Dalvin Cook that we have gotten so used to seeing. A couple, 11, 12-yard runs, breaking some tackles. It was nice to see that again, although it wasn't on like a huge piece for us. It was nice to know that he still has that in him and could return to, the reasoning why we're paying him $60 million.
So.
Yeah. You know, I just want to comment on a couple of things that you guys brought to the table there. I totally agree on Darisaw, Giles. I think that's definitely arrow pointing up at a key position where the Vikings haven't been necessarily totally buttoned up there, in that group as a whole, but in that specific position.
Yep. Arguably our best offensive lineman, and that's all due respect to Brian O'Neill.
Well, yeah, and I think Brian O'Neill's right there. So I think your book ended very well if you're the Vikings there. So that is a bright spot for the Vikings. And Chase, I think you're right. Dalvin did flash, and I can't help but, and we're going to get more in segment 2 on this, but I just see a lot of Rams here with the Vikings offense where it's like, you got to run the ball a little bit more. And I get it. You got a very sophisticated passing offense with great scheme that's hard to defend, and an elite wide receiver. But I just don't like the usage of Dalvin Cook. I don't think it's enough. And you're making the point for me, Chase. Like, when you give it to him and you give him space, I mean, that guy is like he's shot out of a cannon. And I don't remember which defender it was, but it might have been Demario Davis who literally tripped him. And if he hadn't done that, I think Dalvin was gone on that one.
Yeah, he's going to the house.
Yep. And that's an illegal play that was not called, and it might have been an inadvertent trip. But it's just that one play. If that one play doesn't happen that way and Dalvin actually gets to the paint there, I can't even make this point anymore, because he probably would have been over 100 yards and would have had a rushing touchdown. So, but that to me is one thing that isn't working is the running game. I don't think it's gashing people, and I think it'll just make Jefferson and Thielen and Irv Smith better if they can do it a little bit more. So to me, that is part of what didn't work in the grand scheme of things against the Saints. Red zone offense, Dalvin, and I am not sold on this defense at all. And I was very uncomfortable. If I'm a Vikings fan or a Vikings coach, I'm very uncomfortable with the Saints offensively doing what they did with Andy Dalton, no Michael Thomas, and no Alvin Kamara. I mean, I think that's a problem.
And half of their offensive line was out.
Yep. So to me, the things that didn't work, guys, red zone offense, I still want more from the running game, and I don't like how the defense is playing.
Yep. And to build on that, specifically with the running game, I think the fact that we're having spurts of Dalvin Cook doing great shows that he still has it. He's not cooked, no pun intended. Yeah. He still has it. He's still a great back. I actually place a lot of that blame on the offensive line, not to make them always the battering ram here, but on the left side of the offensive line from a run blocking standpoint, they are not doing great this season. I don't know what, between Garrett Bradbury, who is typically a great reach blocker, he's typically really good in the run game. Ironically, that is flipped now, where Garrett Bradbury is actually doing better from a pass protection standpoint than run. And Ezra Cleveland's having a rough year when it comes to PFF on the run side of the fence. And they simply can't call out the Mike, like the middle linebacker. They're really having a hard time figuring out those rush lanes, and that's getting Dalvin stopped in the running game along with it. So I think if we can improve that left side and figure out, I mean, that's a schematic thing, because all last year we were very good at the run. There was the pass protection that we had an issue with. So I think from a run defense or run offense standpoint, we just need to get that blocking a little bit more tuned up.
Yep. And you know what? You might have given the explanation that Kevin O'Connell would give if we pressed him on it, on like why not the run? Why aren't you running more? I saw a great tweet from Paul Charchian. If you don't follow him, give him a follow. He had a great stat on Dalvin and the lack of usage in the red zone and the lack of usage when backed up. Where you should be relying on your bell cow, or at least on your running.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, you broke up there for a second. Say that one more time.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. There's still meat on the bone there in the running game, and I expect that'll improve over time.
Yep.
And I think if that does, I think this offense goes to the next level.
I agree.
Let's go into segment 2, which is just the Vikings playing with house money, Giles and Chase. And what I mean by that is, to me, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I don't really love playing that game because I think when the season is over, it's just like if you play golf, it's like, you shot an 82 and it's like, I could have shot a 79 if I would have made that putt and if I wouldn't have hit it OB over there. And it's like, yeah, I know that, but you know what? You had a lucky bounce out of the sand trap on 17, and you made a really long putt that you got lucky on 4. So it's like you always have that. But so far the Vikings have not. The Vikings have only won games that they probably didn't deserve to win.
That's fair.
I don't think they deserve to beat Detroit, and I don't know that they should have beaten New Orleans. They at least should have gone to overtime there.
Yeah. To me, they lucked out.
But this is good for them. This is good for them because they're gonna get outplayed and then win. They're gonna win a game they shouldn't have won. That's definitely gonna happen. So to me, their wins are wins, man. And
stack them up.
Yeah, stack them up. And they're at 3 right now. They're the 2nd seed in the NFC, and they've got games against Chicago, 2 against Chicago still to go, which I think are going to be 2 wins. Washington, the Jets, and the Giants. They're all on the schedule. 2, 3, 4. That's 5 games that I think they're going to be favored in heavily, and they're going to win. So add that to 3 wins, that's 8. So to me, they got 8. And that's
as a relative gimme.
And that's like Dallas. I think they could beat Arizona. I think they can beat. I think they'll be favored in both those games.
Maybe even Miami, considering their scenario going on right now.
So I mean, I think as critical as I can be about them so far, or have been, I mean, I think they're in a really good position when you take a look at where they are sitting right now. I think eventually they're going to click. They're going to play really well and beat some good teams. They're going to win a game they shouldn't have won, and their division and their conference are weak. So I'm generally, their outlook, I'm negative on how they've played, but I'm positive on their outlook.
100%. And that's the thing about the Vikings, is that they're installing new schemes on both sides of the ball. So I expected a learning curve. So if you can actually get wins when you're not actually thriving, that's the best case scenario, like you're mentioning. If we can get 3-1 now, if we can go into the bye, maybe 5-1, I think, there's some really good elements there, because although I would agree they don't look great in a lot of different ways. One, I think there's executional issues. We're dropping balls all over the place. Our coverage isn't as great. I did kind of a quick analysis to see how is the Vikings organization comparing to the rest of the league. And I think in a vacuum, you would say, the Vikings aren't clicking on offense. They're not clicking on defense. But I did an analysis here. Overall, across all the teams, the Vikings are actually ranked 6th overall with PFF. They're the 6th best team right now, and they're doing better than a lot of teams, including the Bucs, which that's a different conversation. But when it comes to kind of that individual breakdown, we'll start on the defensive side of the ball. They're listed as the 9th best overall defense right now, so they're top 10 in defense. When you break that down, they're actually 3rd in run defense. Like, they're literally 3rd. When you would look at it, you'd be all like, we have a horrible run defense. Well, although it may not necessarily look good, in comparison to the rest of the league, we're actually not doing too bad. Apparently run defense is kind of an issue across the league right now. So I would say it's more of an indictment on the rest of the league than it is the Vikings getting positive affirmation. We're actually 2nd in tackling. We're 9th in pass rush. So to this point, we're top 10 in these categories. We are 13th in points allowed, so we're about middle of the pack. The part where it drops off, drum roll please, coverage. We are 26th in coverage. We are we're 3rd in run defense. We're 9th in pass rush, but 26th in coverage. That's where things are falling apart. I think part of that scheme, but I don't know. Thoughts?
No, and I'm not surprised to hear that at all. And I think where it was the most disappointing was how easy it was for Philadelphia in the first half to score points. I mean, it was like I was watching a 7-on-7, at training camp. And I think it could be worse, guys. Like I've seen, I watched the game back, and I'm like, Andy Dalton missed a touchdown on Patrick Peterson in the game. I think it was Olave who ran by him, and he just didn't throw it to him. And I think Patrick Peterson was a great player and is still a good player. And I've never met him. I left the team before he got there, I'm sure he's a great guy, but he's not the same. He's
No.
not. That's not Patrick
Yep.
Peterson who played for the Cardinals.
Correct. Yeah, there's a step that's been lost.
Yep, for sure. So
Happens to everybody.
I think it could even be worse. Now, are we concerned? Those are interesting numbers. I like putting the quantitative spin on those or look at those because that matters to a great extent.
Yep.
Are we concerned about like Danielle Hunter? Because I can't find him. Where is he? And he doesn't look awful on tape.
Nope.
So maybe teams are just overcompensating and other guys are getting theirs because they are really worried about Danielle. But are we concerned that Danielle's not wrecking games from overtly wrecking games?
I will genuinely say no. I think it's important to note that we don't have Mike Zimmer anymore, so pressure is not going to be what it once was because he was the pressure master. Yeah. But I think it's important to note that we're only rushing 4 linemen on like 90% of snaps. We are not blitzing at all, which obviously seems to be intentional by the coaching staff there.
Yep.
Now, that can be either a kind of a nod to the defensive lineman that we think that we can get home with 4, or we don't trust the coverage, which I think is maybe more where it's at. And I think we're playing cover 6 and 2 high safeties a lot. That's our base defense. But I think we're running that package in a very deep sense. Our safeties are so deep in that mentality that ultimately, like, it makes things really, really tough, where I think we're getting good pressure. Like, we're 9th in pressure, and that's both from Zadarius Smith. Dalvin Tomlinson's been doing great from a pass rush standpoint. I would say, Jonathan Bullard isn't necessarily that great, so if we could replace him, that would be better. But if we can fix our coverage issue, I think then we can make more of a concerted effort to blitz more, and that's where I think you're really going to see them make hay.
Okay. Yep. I totally buy that. I definitely buy that explanation. Because I agree the coverage is not, I think the coverage is substandard. And so you can't be mad at them for not pressuring when they don't believe in their coverage. Interesting. You're mentioning league trends and league observations, Giles, and the Vikings playing a lot of shell coverage. Chris Collinsworth made that note on the Sunday Night Football broadcast this past week when Mike Tirico just asked him, what are you seeing around the league at the end of the game? And he said, I'm noticing a lot of shell coverage. And why that is up for people to guess. Is it just the proliferation of sophisticated passing attacks and lots of speed at receiver? And is it that?
Let's take away the explosive plays.
Yeah, right. I don't know what it is. But that is something that Collinsworth noted, and it's something that you're noting about the Vikings, and so they're obviously following that trend. Is that a season-long trend for them, or will they deviate from that over time? That remains to be seen. I think that you vary on that based on primarily the quarterback you're going against. And is that guy good when he's pressured, or is he bad when he's pressured? There used to be an old adage where it was like, you sit back against the good ones and you go after the bad ones. But now with the rules the way they are, I don't think you want to sit back against the good ones. They'll pick you apart now.
Correct.
I mean, sometimes you want to get after them.
Yeah.
So
especially someone like Andy Dalton, I was expecting us to pressure the heck out of him because he's historically bad under pressure. So I was surprised that we only rushed 4.
Me too. But then, on the flip side, it's like, if I don't want to single anyone out across the league. I don't want to disrespect them, but just like you're playing the 21st rated quarterback in the NFL, you kind of like, we'll take our chances with a 4-man rush, put 7 in coverage, and good luck trying to complete a pass against a 7-man coverage. If you're the 21st best quarterback in the NFL, that's the mindset that a lot of the play callers have. And you can understand that. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes for the Vikings defense, their coverage and their propensity or not to blitz and to pressure. So, and you're right. We're coming off of a coach who loved to do it. I mean, I know firsthand. I mean, he sat in his office and drew them up and just would try to be as creative as he could be. And
arguably one of the best in history at creating pressure.
Yes,
period.
And Aaron Rodgers will tell you that. I mean, the double A gap, and you got Harrison Smith, and you got 9 guys on the line. You don't know who's coming and who's going. And I mean, the great Aaron Rodgers was left to guess. At it. And Zim's record against Aaron Rodgers, relatively speaking, was pretty good when you compare what everyone else's record is against Aaron Rodgers. So, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to find out. The other thing is Daniil is standing up a lot too. So like this whole discussion started with me being like, where's Daniil? Well, he's playing a new position. So I think we got to grant him a little grace there to learn that. Before we take a look at a peek at the NFC, any other notes on the Vikings as a whole? I know, Giles, you had some of those PFF notes that you dove into. So any others?
I got a few things on offense, but lastly on defense, I will say our defense is performing much better than you would maybe look at them. The coverage is really the issue, but the rest of the categories were top 10. So I think considering where we were last year, it's a good improvement. But from an offensive standpoint, currently we're 9th in total offense from a PFF standpoint, so top 10. We're 9th in passing offense specifically. We are 6th in run offense. We are 15th in points scored, which I think is potentially an issue. If we're going to be top 10 in defense, I think we need to be top 5 in total offense if we want to, or in points scored rather, if we want to really make a deep run come February. When it comes to blocking, that's where this is really interesting. We're 7th in run blocking. We are 20th in pass blocking, though, and that's where I think the real disparity comes into play if we're really trying to get these points happening, because we've made a significant number of trips down to the red zone. I had the notes and I just lost them about the amount of times that we've been to the red zone in comparison to other teams, and we are towards the top. We're in the top 10, not top 5, I have to double check, but like in terms of number of trips down to the red zone, and we're not taking points away. Like we get right down where you can sniff the goal line and we have to kick a field goal or we don't get any points at all. And it's tough to win games when it's that way. So honestly, I chalk that up to scheming. We need to do a better job scheming in the red zone. And we need to do a better job at protecting, honestly. When we're throwing, like we're getting a ton of pressure on third downs. We can't figure out who the Mike is, and we're just getting super pressured. So if we can figure out how to put points on the board, I actually think we might be top 5 in scoring, because most teams aren't making it down to the red zone like we are. So I think that is meant to provide a positive tone to this team, that it's not that we're a dumpster fire, that things aren't clicking, although it doesn't always look sexy. We're making trips down to the red zone. We're moving the ball. We just need to be able to capitalize on it.
And this is where, getting back to the usage of Dalvin and the running game, Giles, I mean, the key to red zone conversions historically, and I still believe today, is running the ball. I mean, you have to run it because the field is condensed down there. There's less field for the defense to cover in the passing game, more crowded boxes. You need to be able to run the ball and move people down there. And if you don't run it, you can't do that. It's one thing to be able to do it when you're trying to run it, but if you're not even running it, I mean, you're not going to. So, I mean, that's definitely an area where the Vikings can improve. And what I like to say is, on the red zone conversion thing, guys, field goals lose games. Field goals lose games. Because you're going to miss some and lose that way. And then even when you make them, it's not going to be enough. You got to score, especially when you're down there. And like, I didn't like what John Harbaugh did last week. It was 20-20 in the fourth quarter, and they were inside the 5, and he went for it on 4th and goal. I didn't like that. I would kick there. And
that was pretty aggressive.
But I mean, when I see 5 for 5 on field goals, I don't know. Like
that should be 5 touchdowns.
I mean, I would say 5 for 5 on field goals. Like, that's not great. I mean, that's great for Greg Joseph, and then he wins special teams player of the week or whatever. But like, that tells me that you're not scoring touchdowns.
Correct.
So and you got to fix that.
You need to get the job done.
Yep, for sure.
We are 11th in special teams, if you care about that.
I do care about that. I do care about that, Giles. So
that's a big deal, actually, in comparison to last season.
It is. And you know what? Like, people would be surprised how many special team snaps there are in a game. Like, people think, 7 or 8 or 9. No, there's not. There's 20 or more sometimes special team snaps in a game. You got to be good on that side of the football. That part of the game matters. And the Vikings made a big play on special teams, as you referenced earlier in the show, with the fake punt, and then they went 5 for 5 on field goals. So it's an important part of the game for sure. Any other specifics on special teams for the Vikings?
No, we're just 11th. I think you're absolutely right. It's an incredibly important part of the game. You can make an argument that last year the Packers would have won the Super Bowl had they had a better special teams unit. They had one of the worst in the NFL, and it cost them their season. Yeah,
and they upgraded that, or at least addressed that in a big way by signing Rich Bisaccia to be their special teams coordinator, who was the Raiders interim head coach last year. So
yep, exactly. They're making an investment.
They agreed with you on that one, Giles.
Yep.
All right. Did you empty the PFF notebook?
We emptied the PFF notebook. Let's go onward.
All right, good. Segment 4, bad news for the Bears guys this week. Bears at Vikings, noon Central Time on Fox. The Vikings open as 7-point favorites. Over under is 44. I know the Bears are 2-2, which is 1 or 2 more wins than I thought they'd have after the first month of the season, but they are 0-2 on the road, and they got killed by Green Bay, who the Vikings beat. I do not like this spot for the Bears. I love this spot for the Vikings. Before I go much further, initial thoughts, Vikings-Bears.
I definitely think we win. That's for sure. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I truly think they're one of the worst, if not the worst team in football right now. I think they've lucked into two wins. That's more an indictment on the teams that they've played than themselves. I think we take this handily. I think we show the conference that we're here and we're here to stay. We're going to remain on top. So, yeah, it's a solid W.
Yeah. Chase, any thoughts?
I think you guys hit the nail on the head last week when we talked about it. This is probably the game as a Vikings fan that I'm heading into this year where I'm feeling the most confident. Not saying it's going to be an easy game, but as far as matchups go and home and away and stuff like that, I think not a lot of things could be going better for the Vikings this week.
That's a good way to look at it, Chase. And I remember sitting around with my friends when I was with the team, and we'd be like in the middle of the week or whatever talking about the team, and we'd be like, let's power rank our games, like most winnable to least winnable. It'd be kind of a fun activity. And if we did that right now, this week would be number 1 in the power rankings. This home against Chicago.
At home.
I mean, I know it's a division opponent. There's familiarity there, and division games tend to be closer. But I mean, this would be number 1 in the power rankings of the remaining games that you should win. And look, Chicago's averaging 117 passing yards per game. They have 2 passing touchdowns all season. David Montgomery was out last week. They do have the number 4 pass defense in the NFL, but they have the worst rush defense in the NFL. So maybe a get-right game for the Vikings running game, and nothing scares me on Chicago's offense other than, like, on 3rd and long, Justin Fields, like, extending a drive with his legs.
Using his legs. Yep.
There are no easy games in this league. But from a relative standpoint, this is a layup for the Vikings, I do believe, and I fully expect that they'll be 5-1 at this time next week.
Yep, I completely agree. I also think last week against the Saints was more of a get-right game for certain elements of our game, including Justin Jefferson. For the most positive tone I can offer, I think JJ is a very egotistical person, and I mean that like he wants to show the world that he's the greatest, and let's go make it happen. And I think this week is where I think he wants to show them that I want to compound on that. I didn't just show up last week. I'm going to be here to stay. So I expect him to show up in a big way, and he'll put the clamps down on the defense. So
I think you're probably right, and I do think Kirk Cousins plays better inside. I think the Vikings offense is faster inside. I just think all arrows point to the Vikings here. And a lot of times in this league, that's dangerous, right? And so I think if Kevin O'Connell delivers that message, and he needs to not think about this game the way we are. He's gotta like pretend that something's wrong and that they should lose the game. I mean, that's what they have to pretend.
They need to take it seriously.
But I have high expectations. Like, as easy as of a win as this should be for the Vikings, it's almost like, well, that's a high expectation. So I have high expectations in this game. I'll be in the building for it, actually, and I expect to see a show, particularly on offense. So
seriously, especially because now we're four or 5 weeks in now, right? And you want to see things start to click. I mean, we've given you a little bit of grace. Go figure out your schemes. Get on the same page. Get your route concepts all on the same wavelength. But now is where it should start to click. If you don't start clicking after this week or next week, then I'm going to become more concerned that we're not achieving our true potential.
Agreed. And we will not get into this right now, but if we put cart ahead of horse, we have Dolphins next week, where we may be talking about our guy Teddy leading the Dolphins offense, which he will do this week. I believe they said Tua will not play this week for the Dolphins, so it could be Teddy a week from now who we're talking about as we get ready for Vikings Dolphins. That's what's on the horizon for the Purple, so that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, Mr. Bridgewater himself.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for episode 7, Double Doink, the Vikings victory over the New Orleans Saints, and our preview of the Chicago Bears. As always, Giles and executive producer Chase and I thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe and to find the WobCast 2.0 wherever you find all of your favorite podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube. At Wobby is where you can find me on Twitter. If you want to let us know what you want to hear or ask us any questions you have, we'll love to incorporate that into the show. You can also email us, therealwobcast@gmail.com. We'll check that for notes and questions from you guys as well and incorporate those into the show when applicable. That's going to do it for now. Vikings Bears Sunday at noon, US Bank Stadium. Vikings looking to get win number 4 on the season as they sit in first place in the NFC North and second seed in the NFC, looking to stay hot and keep improving. For Giles and Chase, I'm Wobby signing off for now. Skol Vikings.